At my own wedding reception, the room froze when my fiancée's mother, Victoria Hart, yanked the microphone from my hands and said, "From now on, Ethan will hand over his entire salary to the Hart Family Fund. If he refuses, he can walk out right now." Olivia just stood beside her, silent, shaking, but silent. Phones lifted. Someone laughed. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" And a man I'd never seen before stepped closer, recording everything. But what they didn't know was, "Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from." I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you. Trust me, what happened that night didn't end at the wedding. It was only the beginning. I grew up in a town where the air always smelled like pine, wet dirt, and sawdust. Evergreen wasn't fancy, but it had a kind of quiet honesty you can't fake. My dad, Mark Cole, ran a one-room wood shop behind our house, the kind of place where the floor was always covered in curls of cedar shavings, and the radio only picked up 2 stations. I spent half my childhood sitting on that workbench, swinging my legs, watching him sand down stubborn planks like he was coaxing the truth out of them. Back then, I thought the world was simple. Straight lines, clean cuts. Would either fit together or it didn't. I didn't understand yet that some people learned to bend others until they snapped. One night when I was about 10, a storm rolled through, one of those angry mountain storms that rattled windows and made the trees groan. A stranger showed up at our door, soaked through, shivering, saying he'd lost control of his car near the ridge. My mom, Rachel, didn't hesitate. She wrapped him in a blanket, made him tea, and set him up on the couch for the night like he was family. I didn't know it then, but that moment would matter later. A lot later. Mom died a few years after that. Heart failure. Quick, unfair. I remember the funeral more by sound than sight, the scrape of chairs, the hiss of the pastor's mic, the low hum of condolences that never made it past my skin. Dad stood tall the whole time, but I could see his fingers trembling. He didn't cry, not in front of people. He only cried once that night, gripping the hammer she'd engraved for him when they were first married. He never said it out loud, but losing her carved something out of both of us. I carried that hammer with me into adulthood, tucked in the bottom of my toolbox, like a piece of her still holding my hand. Years later, after high school, I went into construction, bridge crews, road widening projects. Anything that kept my hands moving and my mind too tired to wander into old grief. I worked my way up from laborer to site manager, earning respect the slow way, showing up early, leaving late, doing the jobs nobody else wanted to touch. I wasn't special, just stubborn. Stubborn enough that my foreman used to joke the bridge beams listened to me out of fear. I didn't know it then, but that work ethic would be the very thing Victoria Hart resented most. People like her didn't understand sweat unless it came with a price tag. I met Olivia on a job in Denver. She was standing outside a marketing firm downtown, wrapped in a gray wool coat, hair pinned back like she was trying to look older than she was. A piece of paper flew out of her hands and landed near my boots. I picked it up, and she laughed, embarrassed, cheeks pink. That laugh hooked me. It was soft, real, nothing like the polished, brittle smiles she'd later perfect around her family. We started dating slowly. Coffee after her meetings, late-night drives into the mountains. She said she loved how grounded I was, how different I felt from the circles she grew up in. I didn't know what circles meant until I visited her home for the first time. Hart Estate looked like it had been built specifically to make people like me feel small. Iron gates, marble floors, portraits of ancestors who looked like they'd never touched dirt in their lives. The air smelled like roses and control. Dinner that night was something. Candles everywhere. Silverware that felt heavier than my hammer. Victoria sat at the head of the table like a queen who'd tolerated too many disappointments and was ready for war. Daniel, her husband, barely spoke. Tyler, Olivia's brother, smirked at everything, like he knew some joke I didn't. And maybe he did. I tried to be polite. Tried to ask about their work, their family traditions, their holiday plans, but everything I said seemed to land wrong. Tyler snorted when I mentioned working on a highway project. Victoria asked if construction meant the kind with actual dirt, like she couldn't imagine lifting anything heavier than her wine glass. When dessert came, she leaned forward and said, "So, Ethan, how much do you make a year?" The room went silent. Even the AC hum seemed to pause. I tried to laugh it off, enough to get by. She didn't laugh. Transparency keeps relationships healthy. Don't you agree? Olivia stiffened beside me. Daniel stared at his hands. Tyler kicked the table leg and mumbled, "Yeah, man, we're all about unity here." Then a folder slipped from his lap. Papers slid across the floor, loan notices, casino markers, bright red stamps. He scrambled to pick them up, face burning. Olivia and I locked eyes. She saw it. She knew. I didn't know it then, but that was the first sign of the trap being built around me, one paycheck at a time. A week after that dinner, Olivia apologized for her family. We were sitting in her car outside my apartment, the heater blowing warm air that smelled faintly like old pine-scented air freshener. She held my hand across the console and whispered, "They're intense, but they'll warm up to you. Just don't let Mom think you're hiding anything." I wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe love could smooth out the sharp edges. But something about the way she said, "Don't let Mom think," made my stomach tighten. It wasn't advice. It was a warning. I didn't know it then, but warnings are just prophecies you ignore until they come true. Life moved fast after that. We got engaged quietly, just us, a small ring, and a promise whispered in the parking lot of that same diner where we used to split fries at midnight. But when Olivia told her family, everything shifted. Victoria didn't congratulate us. She evaluated us. Suddenly, the wedding was no longer ours. It was a family event, a heart celebration, a representation of the brand. I'd never heard people talk about a wedding like it was a product launch. Meetings started happening without me. Guest lists ballooned with people I'd never met. A jazz ensemble was booked because it fits the aesthetic. Victoria replaced the florist Olivia loved with some designer flown in from San Francisco who charged more than my first car. And every time I asked, "Why are we doing this?" Olivia's answer was the same. Just let her handle it. It's easier. Easier for who? Not for us. Not for her. Definitely not for me. Around that time, cracks started forming in ways I didn't recognize. At a Sunday brunch, one of those glossy champagne-soaked gatherings, Victoria asked me to step aside with her. The house smelled like citrus cleaner and fresh croissants, sunlight bouncing off every glass surface. She folded her arms. "Ethan, marriage is commitment. And commitment requires structure. The Hart Family Fund has supported us for decades. Supported who I asked. She smiled like she pitied me. Supported this family. We contribute our full salaries. It keeps us unified." I almost laughed. Tyler unified. The guy who spent nights gambling and days pretending it was research. Before I could respond, she added, "You'll join after the wedding. It's non-negotiable." Something cold slid down my spine. "I make my own financial decisions," I said. She didn't blink. "Not if you want to be part of this family." I walked away before I said anything that would burn the house down. That night, Olivia came over, pale, shaking. "Mom said you disrespected her." I told her the truth. "Could you just not fight her?" she whispered. "She wants to protect us. Protect us from what our own independence, each other, reality." I didn't push it, but inside a splinter lodged itself under my ribs. I didn't know it then, but splinters become infections if you leave them alone. 2 days later, I came home early and heard a voice coming from our kitchen speaker. Victoria's voice, crisp and cold. "Once Ethan's paycheck is in the fund, Tyler can cover the liquidity gap. And by the time the auditors look, it'll be buried." My heart punched my ribs. Olivia whispered something I couldn't hear, and Victoria snapped back. "Don't get emotional. This is business." I hit record on my phone without thinking. Then another blow hours later. I got an email from Tyler, by mistake, an internal sheet titled Hart Family Fund. Projected inflows. There it was, black ink on white paper. E. Cole, $8,500 monthly plus bonus contributions. My name, my salary, already assigned, already spent. I stared at it until the screen blurred. I didn't know it then, but that email would become the matchstick that lit the fuse. When I confronted Olivia, voice quiet, trying not to explode, she broke down, collapsed onto the couch, crying so hard her shoulders shook. "If you walk away now," she whispered, "she'll never forgive me. She'll destroy me. Ethan, please, please don't do this to us." But it wasn't me doing anything. The walls were just finally closing in. That night I drove up to Evergreen. Snowflakes hit the windshield like tiny sparks. Dad was still in the shop, smoothing a piece of cedar under the yellow bulbs. I told him everything, every detail, every humiliation. He listened without interrupting. Then he handed me Mom's hammer. "Son," he said, voice steady, "if someone grabs the mic from you, you have every right to walk away." I didn't know it then, but he wasn't talking about a microphone. He was talking about my life. By the time January rolled around, the wedding had stopped feeling like a celebration and started feeling like a negotiation I never agreed to. Every morning, another email or another message from someone on Victoria's payroll showed up on my phone: caterers, designers, photographers, planners. Each one reminding me of decisions I never made, but was apparently responsible for paying emotionally. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that once the ceremony was over, Olivia and I could build something that felt like ours. But hope can be a dangerous anesthetic. It numbs you right until the moment you realize the knife has been inside you the whole time. The first blow came at a Saturday family planning meeting. I'd driven straight from a job site, dust still clinging to my jeans, steel toe boots tracking mud on the marble. Victoria looked me up and down like I was a stain on her glass table. "You couldn't change?" she asked. "I didn't have time." Tyler snorted. "Dude, it's a meeting, not a pit stop." I ignored him and sat down. A glossy binder sat at my seat labeled Hart Coal Union Financial Alignment and Future Structure. I frowned. What's this? Victoria didn't miss a beat. Standard documentation. Everyone in this family signed something like this. It wasn't a prenup. It wasn't anything legal. It was a financial directive. Pages and pages explaining how my salary would be routed through the Hart Family Fund, how bonuses were to be declared, how expenses could be approved. It felt like reading the manual for selling myself. Olivia's foot tapped anxiously under the table. Her eyes begged me not to react. "We can talk about this later," I said carefully. Victoria's voice sharpened. "Later means resistance. Resistance means conflict. Conflict means instability. And instability is unacceptable in this family." "There it was again," family said. "Like a trademark, not a bond." I stood. "I'm not signing this." For a moment you could have heard the dishwasher in the kitchen 3 rooms away. Tyler leaned back, smirking. "Guess he's not team material." Olivia whispered, "Please sit down." But I didn't. I left the binder on the table and walked out. The cold slapped me the second the front door shut behind me. I got in my truck, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I didn't know it then, but that meeting was the beginning of the unraveling. Just not the way they expected. 2 weeks later, the second blow landed. Olivia and I were sitting at a cafe downtown, pretending to enjoy a quiet morning together. She toyed with her spoon so much, I thought it would bend. "My mom says she's worried about your contribution," she said softly. I stared at her. Contribution to what? To the family. To our future. I almost laughed. Live my future is building bridges and keeping us grounded. I'm not joining some cult fund. She flinched. "Don't call it that. What else would you call it? A retirement plan for Tyler?" Her jaw tightened, tears pooling fast. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like? Does your mom even listen to you?" She looked away. "She protects us. She always has. By controlling you." She didn't reply. She didn't have to. Sometimes silence confesses the truth more honestly than words. I reached for her hand. She pulled it back. That tiny motion, that small instinctive withdrawal, hurt more than anything Victoria had ever said to me. That night I got the third blow. A high-end suit delivery arrived at my apartment, except I hadn't ordered anything. Inside, I found a handwritten note in Victoria's elegant script for the wedding. Please present yourself appropriately. We've invested too much for you to look ordinary. Ordinary. Like dirt under her manicured shoes. I took the suit inside, hung it in my closet, and stared at it for a long time. I didn't know it then, but that suit would end up being the last thing I wore before everything shattered. 3 days later came the fourth hit, the one that split everything open. I was at the Hart estate for another forced dinner. Everything smelled like rosemary chicken and tension. Olivia barely touched her food. Daniel was unusually silent. Victoria kept glancing at her phone. Tyler gulped wine like he was trying to forget he existed. Midway through the meal, Victoria cleared her throat. Ethan, we've finalized the family seating for the reception. You'll be at table 4 with our investors and long-term partners. I blinked. Shouldn't I be with Olivia? Tyler snickered. Bro, table 4 is a big deal. It's where we put assets. I set my fork down. I'm not an asset. Victoria gave a cold smile. Everything in a family has its place. Yours is contributing stability. Stability. Code word for cash. I looked at Olivia. She looked at her plate. You're seriously okay with this? I asked. Her lip trembled. Can we not do this here? But we were doing it here, Liv. You don't see what she's doing, Victoria cut in, voice ice. What I'm doing is ensuring that my daughter does not marry beneath her means. Daniel's knife clattered against his plate. Tyler whispered, Damn. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped the hardwood with a long, ugly sound. Thank you for dinner, I said. But I'm done. Olivia shot to her feet. Ethan, please, I'm done walking blind. I left without looking back. The night air was brutally cold, but it felt more honest than anything inside that house. I didn't know it then, but I was already standing at the edge of the cliff. All it needed was one push, and that push came next. The final push came on a Wednesday evening, the kind where Denver feels half frozen, half asleep. I'd had a long day, on-site wind slicing my ears, concrete dust stuck in my hair, and all I wanted was a shower and silence. But Olivia was sitting on the couch when I walked in, hands clasped tight, face pale like she'd been rehearsing something awful. Mom wants to meet tomorrow, she said. Just you and her. I dropped my keys. About what? She didn't say. Of course she didn't. Victoria never said, she declared. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice sharp as broken glass telling me who I had to be to earn a place in her family. By the time morning came, I was wired and exhausted. Still, I went. The Hart estate looked different that day, colder somehow, the stone walls casting longer shadows than usual. Victoria waited for me in her study, a room filled with thick bookshelves, a fireplace that didn't give off real heat, and a polished desk that reflected her face like a mirror. She gestured for me to sit. I stayed standing. This wedding, she began, fingers folded like she was conducting a board meeting, is the merging of two legacies, Hart and Cole. We don't have a legacy, I said. We have a wood shop. She smiled thinly. Exactly. My jaw clenched. She continued. I'm going to speak plainly. Your background complicates things. My background, blue collar, modest resources, unpredictable income. She waved a hand. Ethan Love doesn't survive financial imbalance. That's reality. I stared at her. I provide for myself. I always have. But can you provide for Olivia? She asked. For the lifestyle she deserves? My voice dropped. She deserves happiness, not a salary bracket. Victoria leaned back. That is why the fund is essential. Stability, Unity, protection. For Tyler, I said. Her eyebrow twitched. Excuse me, you're not building stability. You're patching holes. He's drowning in debt, and you need a new income stream to keep him afloat. The temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. She stood slowly. I'm giving you a chance to show loyalty, Ethan. I'm giving you a chance to belong. Don't be foolish. I didn't flinch. I belong where I'm respected. This isn't respect. Her eyes hardened. Marriage is sacrifice. Then why am I the only one being sacrificed? Silence. Thick, deadly. And then she said the line that lodged itself in my bones. You can be part of this family, or you can be part of her past. I left before I broke something. I didn't know it then, but that sentence was the last thread holding everything together. The next day was the rehearsal dinner. Another event planned, without me shaped to look like a magazine spread. The room smelled like white wine and expensive lilies. Olivia looked tired under her makeup, like the sparkle had been scrubbed off her days ago. People mingled, laughed, clinked glasses. I smiled where I had to shook hands when expected. Played the part of the groom, though I felt more like a guest actor in a show written by someone else. Midway through the evening, Jenna, the only bridesmaid who actually talked to me, pulled me aside. She didn't tell you, did she? She whispered. Tell me what Olivia tried to defend you last week. They shut her down. Your future mother-in-law said. She said you were replaceable. My stomach twisted. Replaceable? I'm sorry, Jenna said. She loves you. She's scared of her mom. I nodded because I didn't trust myself to speak. Later that night, as guests carried plates of cake back to their tables, I overheard something that cracked me open in a way I didn't expect. I was walking down the hallway past the kitchen, and I heard Victoria's voice through the swinging door, sharp, annoyed. Ethan is embarrassing. At least Olivia's first fiancé had pedigree. Pedigree. Like this was a dog show. Then a second voice, Daniel's, tired and low. You're pushing too hard. Victoria hissed. I'm preventing her from making another mistake. I froze. First fiancé. Mistake. My chest tightened. The shadows of something I'd never been told began forming in the hallway with me. I didn't go back inside. I walked straight to my truck, started the engine, and drove no destination, just motion. I ended up at Dad's shop. The door creaked when I pushed it open, warm air spilling out. Dad looked up from the workbench. You okay? He asked. No. I told him everything. The meeting with Victoria. The forced financial directives. The overheard conversation. The growing fear in Olivia's eyes. The feeling of being carved down, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. Dad listened, hands resting on the wood he'd been shaping. When I finished, he nodded slowly. Son, he said, some families build walls. Some build prisons. You need to figure out which one you're marrying into. I sank onto a stool. What do I do? He slid Mom's engraved hammer across the bench. You hold on to your dignity, and if anyone tries to take it, you walk. I stared at the hammer. The metal shined under the shop light. I didn't know it then, but I'd be gripping that hammer less than a week later, after the wedding. Collapsed after the video went viral, after the boardroom exploded. But before all that came the last blow of the escalation. The night before the wedding, Olivia and I met privately in the venue's side room. Just the two of us, a dim lamp and bouquets stacked haphazardly on tables. She reached for my hand with trembling fingers. Promise me you won't fight her tomorrow, she whispered. Just don't ruin it. Ruin what I said. A day that's not even ours anymore. Her chin wobbled. Please, Ethan. I can't lose you and her. I swallowed hard. Then stand with me. I can't, she said. Not tomorrow. That was it. That was the moment I knew the wedding wasn't going to end with vows. It was going to end with a fracture. But nothing prepared me for how brutally it would break. Nothing prepared me for the moment Victoria Hart stepped up to that microphone and detonated everything. The wedding day should have felt like a beginning. Instead, it felt like the last thin thread holding two worlds together, and I could already feel it fraying. Snow drifted over Boulder like powdered sugar shaken from a giant's hand. The venue, an old historic hall, glowed with chandeliers the size of small planets. Guests in black suits and silk dresses filled every corner, laughter echoing off gold-trimmed walls. A jazz band played something soft, something meant to calm nerves and hide tension. But tension doesn't hide. It seeps, it hums, it waits. I stood near the stage, microphone in hand, Olivia beside me in her ivory dress. She looked beautiful, achingly beautiful, but also exhausted, like love and fear were wrestling inside her ribcage. I could see the shimmer of tears she was trying to blink away. "Ready," she whispered. Was I? I wasn't sure, but I nodded anyway. The MC gestured for me to step forward. The jazz faded, the room dimmed, and a spotlight warmed the back of my neck. I opened my mouth to thank everyone for coming to talk about love and new beginnings and all the things people expect to hear from a groom, but the mic was ripped from my hand. It happened faster than I could register. A flash of diamonds, the sting of cold air where the mic had been, and then her voice. Victoria Hart. In this family, she announced, turning toward the crowd with a smile sharp enough to slice glass. We have traditions. The hall fell silent. Not the kind of polite silence that comes before a speech. No, this was heavier, thicker, the kind that feels like a held breath before something breaks. Olivia's fingers twitched at her side. She didn't move toward her mother, but she didn't move toward me either. Victoria lifted her champagne glass. And starting today, as my daughter joins her life with Ethan's, he will contribute his entire salary, $8,500 a month, plus all bonuses to the Hart Family Fund. My heart punched my ribs. Gasps rippled through the hall. Someone choked on a drink. A few phones came up, not even discreetly. A woman near the bar whispered. She didn't just say that, but she did. And she wasn't done. If he refuses, Victoria said, voice sweet but venom-laced, he may walk out right now. The Hart family does not force membership, but we also do not tolerate disunity. I felt every pair of eyes on me. Heat crawled up my spine. My pulse thundered in my ears. I looked at Olivia, pleaded with my eyes. Say something. Just one word, one sentence. Her lips parted, then closed. She stared at the floor, silent, frozen, crushed between fear and loyalty. Phones were recording from every angle now. The videographer lowered his camera, unsure whether to keep shooting. Even the jazz band had stopped mid-note. Victoria turned to me like she expected gratitude, like she expected me to nod, smile, submit. Her voice carried through the silence like ice cracking on a frozen lake. Well, will you honor this family honor? That word spun inside my chest like a blade. Images flashed through my mind, Dad in the workshop holding Mom's hammer. The recording I'd made of her late night scheming. The financial documents with my name already assigned, like I was cargo. Olivia crying in the venue's back room, begging me to keep the peace. And the warning Dad gave me. If someone grabs the mic from you, son, you have every right to walk away. The hall seemed to tilt. My breath steadied. My heartbeat slowed into something calm, scarily calm. I took the microphone back from the MC, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I lifted it, held it for just a moment, felt the weight of it, the choice of it. My voice came out steady. Thank you for making things clear. I set the microphone down, gently, like placing the final nail in a coffin. Then I straightened my jacket, smoothed the fabric, looked at Olivia one last time. Her eyes brimmed with tears she would never speak out loud. And I walked. The aisle stretched out in front of me like a tunnel. People shifted, some gasping, some whispering, some lifting their phones higher. A server at the door leaned in as I passed and whispered, "This is going viral, man." Outside, the cold hit my face like truth. Snowflakes melted on my collar. The parking lot glittered under the streetlights. Dad was already standing beside my truck. He didn't ask questions. He didn't judge. He just nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of a choice he always knew I'd have to make. We climbed in. The engine rumbled to life. And as we pulled away, a voice drifted out from the open door behind us. Victoria, furious, shouting, "You'll regret this. Do you hear me, Ethan? You'll regret this." But another voice, male, calm, unfamiliar, cut through her screaming. "Careful, Victoria. I'm recording all of it." I glanced back long enough to see a man standing near the bar inside the hall. Phone raised expression, unreadable. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know why he was filming. But I felt it. A shift, a crack in their empire, a door opening where they thought they'd slammed one shut. The snow fell harder. Dad rested his hand on the dashboard. And somewhere between the venue and the motel off Route 36, I realized something. They thought they'd stripped me of everything. But all they'd done was free me. And they had no idea what was coming next. The motel room smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee, the kind of place where time hangs in the air like dust. Dad fell asleep in the chair by the window boots, still on arms crossed, breathing steady. I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone glowing in my hands, snow tapping softly against the glass like a restless reminder that the world outside was still moving, still watching. The first call came just after midnight. "Olivia." Her voice shook. "You humiliated her, Ethan. Do you understand what you did?" I closed my eyes. "Liv." She did that to herself. "She's devastated," she whispered. "People are already talking. Reporters called the house. Please just come back. Explain everything. Say it was a misunderstanding. No one loses face for telling the truth," I said. She didn't answer. I heard a sob. Then the line went dead. The second call came 20 minutes later. "Victoria." Her tone was icy calm, too calm. "You've destroyed my image. I will make sure no construction firm in Denver hires you again. You will not survive this." I didn't raise my voice. "I build things with my hands. Your reputation can't touch that." "You're a nobody," she snapped, "and I will show you what happens to nobodies who challenge me." She hung up before I could respond. I set the phone down, letting the silence stretch. But the silence didn't last. At 3:14 a.m., the screen lit with an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something told me not to. I answered. A man's voice, steady low. "Ethan Cole. Yeah, my name is Mason Reed. I saw the video from your wedding." My breath hitched. "Why are you calling me? Because your mother once helped me when I had nothing," he said. "And because the Hearts called me tonight begging for damage control." I sat up straighter. And I told them I'd only meet if you were in the room." "Why me?" "Because I know what kind of man you are," he said. "And I know exactly what kind they are. Be at Hart Legacy headquarters at 9. The truth is about to shift." The line clicked off. A second later, my email pinged. One new message. No subject line. Inside was a video clip, grainy, shaky phone footage. Victoria and Tyler right after the wedding. Her voice unmistakable. "We'll spin this. We'll say he panicked. We'll say he's unstable." I stared at the screen, pulse rising. They thought they'd buried me. Instead, they'd handed me a weapon shaped like truth. And they had no idea what I was about to do with it. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit that subscribe button. Stories like mine don't end in a single night. They unfold, twist, and reveal the people behind the masks. And trust me, what happened at that wedding was only the spark. The real reckoning came later in a boardroom 30 floors above Denver, where every secret they tried to bury finally clawed its way into the light. Subscribe if you want to hear the rest. This story isn't over.